Hi, Shanna.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
Good. How are you?
How are you?
Fine. Everybody good?
Yep. There are more people coming, right?
We hope, yes. We should have 5.
Oh, okay.
We have 4.
Are we down to 4?
Carol, yes. So Peter is not coming.
Oh, okay.
And Ron Bodenson indicated that he had a conflict.
Right.
So we're waiting on Giselle and Elliot.
Okay.
Is that all we are?
It'll just be 4 of you, just a quorum.
Just
Wow.
enough for a quorum.
What about John Mathers?
John Mathers couldn't come.
Okay. There's Giselle.
Hi,
Hi,
Giselle.
Hello.
Hey, Giselle.
Give a few more minutes for Elliot to join us.
Yeah, it does feel like we need him, so.
Him.
Maybe you have to watch him. He needs to go out and stuff, you know.
Yay, there's Elliot.
Hey,
Hello,
Elliot.
everyone.
Hey, it's good to see you. All right, well, we have a quorum of 4, so shall we get started? It's 7:01, and I think we have everyone we're expecting. So will the meeting of the Thursday, January 20th, 2022, please come to order? I'm going to read off the ground rules for the meeting, and so bear with me while I get used to this system. We'll have one public hearing scheduled for this evening, and during the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to join as a panelist to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The applicant or staff will share all application materials on the screen as needed. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any, and there will be clarifying questions coming from the commissioners. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from attendees. I see we have some attendees here. Please raise your hand through the Zoom platform and wait to be called on and then unmuted. Next, those who wish to support the application will come forward, and then those who oppose the application may come forward. As this public hearing must be recorded, it is necessary that speakers identify themselves each time they speak by stating their name and address. The applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. And once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of this commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Land Use Department at area code 203-245-5632 after 9 a.m. And all actions tonight taken by the commission will be by roll call, so commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening, we have Shona Hay, Elliot Hitchcock, Giselle McDowell, and myself, which makes 4 of us for a quorum. Staff present this evening is Erin Mannix, our town planner. Is Raquel here? Is she recording? Okay, good. So she's the black screen. This meeting is live streamed on YouTube and will be made available on the town website for viewing. And now the town planner, Erin Mannix, will read the legal notice.
Sure. Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be conducted remotely as a Zoom online webinar. Attendees may join the webinar through the webinar link or call in information below. Webinar ID 915-8196-6735, passcode 452138. The following application will be heard. 21-27 plus coastal site plan 168 to 178 Cottage Road, map 32, lots 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14, C District, Marine Ventures 3 LLC, and 168 Cottage Road LLC, special exception modification to condition number 7 of original approval requiring dredging. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the Land Use Office. All written correspondence shall be submitted to Erin Mannix, Town Planner, at mannixe@madisonct.org. Dial 203-245-5631 for assistance. Dated at Madison, Connecticut, this 3rd day of January 2022. Elliot Hitchcock, Secretary.
Okay, do we have representatives here for the project for 168 to 178 Cottage Road?
Yes, we do, and I'll get them over for you as panelists now.
And we can start the presentation.
I'm unmuting myself. This is Chuck Mandel. Hold on one sec.
Okay,
Welcome, Chuck.
Okay,
we have John coming over too. And John Lust.
and John Casey is the attorney of record for this. There he is.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, John. I think we have
Welcome.
everybody you need, right?
Yes,
Yes,
to be turning their computers on, or their cameras on, I should say.
Well, I'm actually out here. So I'll see if you're on there.
We could have a motion to open the public hearing and allow for the applicant to present then.
I move to open the public hearing.
A second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
hey, John Casey, you're up.
Okay, I guess I'll just ask my team members to just mute themselves until it's time, just for everyone's convenience. Can get a lot of overlap. So again, for the record, my name is John Casey. I'm a partner with the law firm of Robinson and Cole. We represent Marine Ventures 3 LLC and 168 Cottage Road LLC in this application. With me this evening are Chuck Mandel, John Matthews, and John Lust, all of whom you'll hear from when it's their turn. I would just ask each of them when they start speaking, just to give a little background about themselves. So the commission and the people who are listening know who's speaking and understand their background and credentials. Briefly, myself, I'm a land use attorney with Robinson Cole. I've been with the firm for 20 years. I specialize in land use and in particularly coastal development and coastal site plans, DEP permitting, and Army Corps permitting and the like. So tonight we're here, really it's a follow-up. It's a simple request. This project at 168 to 178 Cottage Road was approved in 2018 to allow a mixed-use development. And the part we're looking at specifically is condition 7, which required, and I'll read it for everyone because everyone may not have the materials before them, but it says, prior to the issuance of any building permits for phase 1, the owner shall apply for permits and approvals necessary to complete the dredging of at least 29 slips. If the required permits and approvals are granted, the approved dredging work will be completed before certificates of occupancies are granted for phase 1. John Matthews, who is with us, is going to explain a little bit of the background. This is a mixed-use development, and key to its approval is that part of it remain a water-dependent use, that the marina remain a water-dependent use. It's our understanding that the condition was put in place with the idea that perhaps there might be a siltation problem in the river, or that the slips would become unusable for some reason, and you would lose that water-dependent use. What we're going to tell you and explain to you tonight is that that's not the case. While this marina was dredged almost 30 years ago in the early 90s, since 1996, the conditions there have been stable, and the owner has been able to rent the slips to boat owners and make good active use of that marina. And as such, there's no need to really require dredging, which would be, it's, in addition to being unnecessary, it's also quite burdensome. And John Lust, who's an expert in coastal permitting, will explain that. So with that introduction, I will at this time pass it over to John Matthews, who is the architect for the project and can give you a brief explanation. As I said, we're not here to go over this project. The project's been approved. We're here to focus specifically on that condition, but we understand some members of the commission are new, and for members of the audience who are listening, we feel it's appropriate to give some background so you understand what we're asking for exactly. Thank you. And John, take it away.
Good evening. My name is John Matthews. I'm an architect with offices at 817 Boston Post Road in Madison. I'm also a Madison resident. I've practiced architecture for more than 50 years. So it's been a long time. This project we started in 2016, and it's in the C district, which requires for a mixed use, for every square foot of commercial space, you can do 2 square feet of residential space. And as we developed the project at some point in the development, the town had made a ruling that for each boat slip was worth 250 square feet of commercial space. So therefore, for every boat slip, we could do 500 square feet of residential space. So that's why the 29 slips became such an issue. We presently have 30,000 feet of commercial space, which includes the 29 slips, and we have about 58,000 square feet of residential. So right now we have an excess of commercial space over what would be required for the 37 units that we have. And the 37 units, 32 are townhouses with garages underneath. 5 of them are ADA accessible units that have a first floor bedroom. They also have a garage. So it's a mixed use development. We went through all the ACA boards and everything else, and it was approved. And I think it would be a great addition to the town. And briefly, Aaron, if you could put up the site plan, I'll just be very brief to point out what happens on the site. While she's doing that, the site was developed with as three different parcels. It's an 11-acre site. We were giving 2.7 acres to the town, so we have roughly 8.5. And there were three different parcels which had to do with septic design, and for each parcel has its own septic systems.
Is this the
So
one
at the-
you're looking for, John?
Yes, this is the one I was looking for. The top of the sheet is the Boston Post Road, and then coming down at the angle is Cottage Road, which dead ends. And at the dead end, that's the town's property, and they have recently just improved that for a canoe launching situation. The fingers you see sticking up used to be a bridge. This was actually Route 1 at one point in time. So, as I said, we have three different parcels. On the left is the first parcel. In the middle is the second parcel, and on the right is a commercial space, and 5 of the 37 units are on that parcel. The larger squares you see on the buildings are the accessible units. And then as you come down, this big rectangle, the large rectangle is the existing building that's on the site. And then we were proposing an addition, and then we were proposing to put a second floor inside the existing building. It's a pre-engineered building and has plenty of height to let us do that. We're adding a lighthouse element here to give it some nautical character with new canopies and siding. And then as you come down, this area to the right is really the marina parking and boat storage. From those lines you see have to do with the DEP coastal boundary. So in this, the area between the large building and the water is essentially a big parking lot that either has boats on it or people park their cars there. So you can see the T-shaped dock going off to the right. The other part of our water dependency use, the little square with the X on it to the left of the end of the docks, that is a kiosk for kayak rentals, which is again a water dependent use function that occurs on this site. And so that's the overall scheme of this project. There is one other odd situation. This little rectangle down to the right with the red lines on it is an oyster fisherman who does seed oyster planting. He actually has no access to his property except by water, and part of our approval was to give him a right of way through our parking area where he could get to his little building. He has a very small building there and like 2 boats that he uses in his oyster farming. And so let's go to the next slide, Aaron. This next slide is sort of an aerial made from the other side of the post road that just gives you a sense of the project itself.
Let me see, John. I've got 2 of them, so let me see if this is the one you're
But
looking
they're
for first.
both the same, I believe. No, that's the photos. So it would be before the photos.
The aerial view you're looking for?
Yes, the
Okay.
aerial view.
The diagram.
Yeah, the
This one?
rendering, I think we called it, yes.
Okay,
So
sorry
this-
about that.
This is made from the north side of the post road, which is the bottom edge of the rendering. You can see the river to the left, and then you can see the townhouses, residential building, and the commercial building, and then that large green area between the big building and the water. That's the parking area for parking and boats. And then you can see the slips going out into the river itself. Again, that just gives you a sense of the complexity of the project. And so each building has its own septic system, but that's not an issue in this discussion. So if now, I'd just like to turn it back to the aerial photograph.
John, just while we're switching again, John Casey for the record, on that last rendering, the way it showed the river, it looked like the docks took up like half the went in the middle of the river, but that's just the way it was drawn on the plan. So
Yeah, the
you have
river
a-
is wider than that.
than depicted. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. There we go.
So here's a drone shot made from the other side of the river, looking, and you can see the existing main building. You can see that little oyster guy over here on the left. This marina was originally approved for 61 slips. And at some point, there were 61 slips here. The 29 that we're using are the ones that you see, except there's some that come around the corner at the north side. You can see at least one boat there. And you can see the little kiosk for the kayak rentals there, and see the parking and so forth. So this gives you a real sense of what it is, and that's been in operation for a long time, and including this past summer. There is another shot, I think, looking on a slightly different angle, but it effectively shows the same thing. I think probably that first shot's the best one, but let's see what this one looks like. Yeah, this is made more from across the river. You can see how the river in this goes down and out to the sound. There's another huge marina down here to the left once you go around that curve. And there's also another marina over here to the left, diagonally across the river from us. And again, there's a small marina directly across from us and the Clinton side. And you can see the main channel, which goes between our boats and his boats. And that's where the Hammonasset River flows out. So unless there's questions, that's essentially my part of the presentation at this point.
Thank you, John. Again, for the record, John Casey from Robinson and Cole. So upon receiving the approval, the applicant investigated the idea of dredging. As I said, this marina had been dredged in the past, as again almost 30 years ago now, in 1993. But what he found, because that's when basically the new owner took over, is that things really didn't, once it dredged, it silted in quite quickly, and then it stabilized, and they were able to use it for their customers. So with that, I will turn it over to John Lust, who is here as an expert in coastal permitting. So John, if you could just give a little of your background before you start speaking.
Good evening. My name is John Lust. I'm a permitting agent. I live in Branford, Connecticut, and I've been permitting tidal water marinas and waterfront properties since 1987. I come out of the marina industry, having designed, permitted, and built Branford Landing, and I ran that for 10 years. And I now spend a lot of my time with Connecticut's marinas, just handling their maintenance and improvements. Uh, I think there are 2 points, regarding dredging that I just like to make. I agree with everything that John Casey has said. This is a very shallow portion of the river. This has always been a shallow draft marina. It doesn't generate a lot of money. It silts in within 3 years of a dredge project. And I mean, that's just unsustainable for a marina. That's unsustainable for marinas with slips up to 100 slips. So I think, the marina has existed as a small boat marina. I mean, it answers the need of a very specific market. It's a country, quiet marina. And so you'll get small center console boats, you'll get rowboats, and the water depth in the existing slips is appropriate for that. And being that it seems to have developed a stabilization, I mean, that's great for the marina, because going ahead, they don't have to worry about that.
Can I just interrupt you, John, for a minute?
Sure.
I'm just sorry. And Aaron, we submitted a site plan with it's a plan of the docks with a hydrographic survey that shows the water depth. So that might be helpful to use here. But John, I also just want you to clarify, when you say it's not sustainable, what you mean is, in order to keep these, if there's some requirement to keep these boat slips at an unnatural depth, because through dredging, you're saying that you'd have to dredge basically every 2 to 3 years because it would silt in that amount of time, correct?
I should say that normal larger marinas, they have the shortest cycle time that I've seen for regular dredge projects is 7 years. And generally it's closer to 10 or 15 years between dredges. To have to dredge a marina every 3 to 4 or 5 years to maintain a depth, for a market that they achieve by creating that depth, it wouldn't be sustainable. It's a 29 slip marina. They couldn't, it couldn't function as a business.
Okay. So Aaron, if that plan is ready.
Zoom in a little bit here.
Yeah, if you want to zoom in. So John, can you just explain to the commission and to the public that's watching, there's numbers expressed in negative values.
So
what are those? What do those represent?
They represent water depth, and to read them, you have to realize that it's actually an elevation, and from that elevation you can determine water depth, because what you want is water. What you're concerned about is the depth of water at low tide, and the elevation of a mean low water is minus 2.8. So if you look at the depth numbers and subtract minus 2.8, that's your water depth. And all but between 4 and 7 of these slips have well over 2 feet of water. And 2 feet is what I consider, minimum for for a typical Long Island Sound center console, 20-foot boat, 21-foot boat, with a decent outboard on it. That's all manageable. Once you go below 2 feet, then it's a smaller boat. It's the 16 to 18 foot. It's got a much smaller boat motor on it, if anything. So when I first looked at this, I said, well, geez, all but 4 to 7 of these are, have sufficient water for, a larger boat. And if that's been stable since 1996, there's no problem proceeding and with the marina as it has been since it was built. I mean, they first started permitting this in 1955. So there's something good about having a marina of this size. It really appeals to a certain part of the community that doesn't want a big, fancy, expensive marina, just wants a quiet place to go to on a Sunday And I think it serves, it satisfies a need locally, I guess is what I'm saying.
Just to confirm, you said I think you said there's 4 slips that maybe don't have 2 feet, but that's not 4 out of 29. That's 4 out of the 43 that are there now. Just want to confirm for the commission that there's
Yes.
29, usable slips. There's actually more, but I just want to make sure that's clear on the record.
Actually more.
Thank you, John.
So I do have one more point
Please.
that relates to dredging, if you don't mind. The first one is to say, the first point I wanted to make was to say that this marina does not have to dredge to exist and exist successfully. The second point is when you're considering making a condition about dredging is that the dredging process for the last 2 or 3 years, because of some changes both at DEP and primarily the Army Corps, has just been a nightmare for all the marinas in the state. Dredging now, if you could even get a permit, ranges from 28 to 52 months. And that's if New York will allow disposal in Long Island Sound. So, to make it a condition, you would be putting the owners of this marina in a position that they may not be able to meet. I mean, they could try desperately to get dredged and may not be able to get dredged. And I think it would put the whole project in a position that you as commissioners may not want to be putting the marina in. So that's really all I wanted to convey.
And I'll echo, actually, John and I are part of a bit of an ad hoc community of people involved in coastal permitting and dredging in particular that are trying to find a way to make dredging and dredge disposal easier. But I think anyone on that committee would tell you the same thing John said. It's really problematic. And so as I said when I started, this is a condition that's unnecessary because the marina exists in its current state and the water depths are stable, and it's burdensome on the property owner. So for those reasons, we would ask the commission to modify, to actually remove that condition from the approval. We're not asking for any other modifications to the approval, any changes, anything else. We feel this really has no impact on the overall development. And for, it was approved for the reasons it's approved. And we feel this is really was an extra sort of unnecessary condition, maybe offered and appended onto the approval with the idea that it would sort of help confirm that it would remain a water dependent use without really understanding the complexities and the need for it. So with that, I think that's it. Chuck, is there anything you wanted to add while we still have the stage?
Yeah, Chuck Mandel. I'm a partner at Stevens and Associates. It's an engineering survey firm in Madison. We've been before this commission a couple of times. I took the liberty of watching the P&Z meeting of July 19th, and I noticed 3 of the commissioners were at that hearing. Dr. Hay, you recused yourself at that meeting because I think that was the second meeting you had been there, and Chairman Snow was not present. I just want to say during that meeting, a couple of items came up. One was the condition of approval. That was actually spoken about. That was the #1 condition of approval when they were talking about dredging, the permitting for the dredging. I think it may have been worded improperly. It perhaps should have said prove that there are 29 viable slips, as opposed to getting the proper approvals. It may have been a bit naive on our team side to even suggest that. Because due to the, you saw the sketch, we went out and did some soundings. We took actual topography. Those negative elevations were actually that was the bottom of the channel. That was so you subtract that from the mean high water, low high water. That's where you get the elevation of the water. That can hold. I don't think, as John Casey said, it wasn't meant, or John Lust, it wasn't meant for large boats. A slip, what's the definition of a slip? It could be large, it could be, you could put a skiff in there if you want, which has a very minor draft. Another issue that came up, and we got a letter from DEP, and I know this is going to come up in your discussion, and I know there's concerns about DEP. We went from, and I'm not going to plow the same field that these guys talked about earlier. I want to discuss the original application. We had about a 10-page letter from Marcy Bulent of different conditions that we had to satisfy. We had George Logan. We had to get a taxonomist for almost every species out there. They were trapping moths out in the late spring or whenever they were doing it, just to see what type of species. So the owner of the project, Green Ventures, he had quite a bit of expense to satisfy all the conditions for DEP. We had Benno out there. We did a coastal forest restoration plan. We went through every hoop, and I know the commission was aware of that we did that. So I think it was the night of the meeting, we finally got a 2-page letter instead of a 10-page letter from the DEP. We satisfied some of those conditions had been satisfied, but they sometimes repeat themselves. And I know that, so right now I'm going to circle back to what we're actually talking about, is get the removal of that condition number 7. So in order for this to get referred back to CAM, I understand Erin Maddox, she had to do that from a legal standpoint since it is a CAM public application, but I don't really think DEP can really weigh in on this. This has already been approved. We're just asking for, and we have proven that we have 29 viable slips. John, what was the actual slip count that are viable? It was more than 29.
It is. Are you asking me?
Yes, John Lust.
I don't have that number. I think it's
Okay.
40, right?
Yeah,
John?
I remember from your an email, it was not 29 slips. We have 40 viable slips based on the actual depths that we have there. So to make that a condition of approval, to get permitting from the DEP, which we don't actually need permitting at this point, I don't really understand the logic into why we would have to go back, or why we even have to entertain DEP. I understand this commission's new and they don't want to step on anyone's toes and they want to do the right thing. But in this one instance, I think it's ill-advised to go back to DEP. It's just going to delay the project, and to what end? So DEP can weigh in on other items that really aren't what we're talking about tonight. I just want to focus on condition number 7. Thank you.
John Casey again for record. Can I just ask that you confirm, that during the permit of the project itself, DEP dredging was not an issue that DEP raised?
That was something, like I said, it was an ill-conceived.
But it wasn't. I'm just saying it wasn't in one of those comments that DEP made.
No.
That's I mean, DEP, just so John, they don't like dredging. When you go to them with the dredging application, they have to process them, but they basically advise you against proposing any new dredging in the state. And if you're doing maintenance dredging, it better be at a facility that needs it, that is basically a commercial water dependent use, that they only want it for very specific reasons. And so if it's not needed, it's not something they would go and encourage people to do. We didn't even touch on, the fact that even dredging anywhere is going to have environmental impact. It repairs itself over time, but that initial shock is a shock to the system. So, so that all being said, and I'll just point to you to the application. It's John Lust's letter dated October 29th, 2021. And he says just at the end, in summary, then at Marina Landing Facility, I found that they have a 50 slip facility with 7 slips being too shallow to utilize until dredged. This leaves 43 usable slips. So just so that's in the record in writing. So we have 43 usable slips. The issue was making sure we had 29. So we're well past the 29 required to support this facility in the calculation that John Matthews explained earlier in the talk.
And John, not to interrupt,
Nope.
getting back to Deep, their main concern is actually water dependent use. And getting to that water dependent use. This marina really only has one element for water dependent use. You're not fishing, you're not water skiing, there's no scuba diving. It's really just for boat dockage. They are proposing, the proposal did have a deck on the east side, I believe, for the public. So, and that would be deeded for public use. And I know Commissioner McDowell was concerned about the amenities being not being allowed, like once the condos in place, that people from the townhouses won't allow the public on there, but that's all going to be safeguarded in the deed. So it will be open for water dependent use, and those 29 slips can be used today. There's no dredging required for that, and that is for the public. Those slips are not, it's not a documinium, as someone had said. It's really just for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes our primary presentation. We look forward, if you have any comments or questions, or the public does, we're happy to respond to those.
Okay, thank you to John, and Chuck. The three Johns and a Chuck. Does anyone on the commission have any questions on what we've heard so far?
I do have one question. Of the 29 existing slips, how many were actually rented last year? You said they are currently being rented.
Well, Chuck Mandel, I can't speak to how many are rented, but I know when I was in there in the summer, every slip was filled with boats. There was one or two that were out, but I've noticed there is quite a bit of activity. When we did those soundings, it was actually pretty cold. There were still about 10 boats that were still on there. So I can say they're probably 10. I'm not really sure, but I know it looked like it was pretty full when I was there, just by my eye. That's all. I couldn't tell you the actual rental figure.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a few questions, and yes, I was not part of the previous presentations, and so I just have some questions about the use of those 29 slips. This is public use, so not by the owners who are going to be living at the development. Is that correct?
Correct. I went over when I was reading when I watched the meeting this morning, that was part of it. Because that was one of the concerns of the earlier commission, and the commissioners who were there can correct me if I'm wrong, but the word documinium was used, and it was specifically said it's not for, if someone wants to have a boat, they can have the best of both worlds, and that was to quote someone else, but that is open for the public for a fee, of course.
Great,
Yeah.
Thank you. And also, is there any place to launch or haul boats there, or is the idea that they're put in somewhere else and they come around and they use the docks during the summer or during the season?
Yeah, there is no boat lift capacity there. They have to put it
Okay.
in somewhere else.
And is there boat storage? So once they're
Yes,
hauled,
yep, that was another element of the water dependent use. It was boat storage and docking. And I think, I don't even know if they do repairs, but I know.
that was what you anticipated.
Yeah, well, that was
my next question.
because that's exactly what the commission was talking about last time. Like I said, I just had so it was really just for storage was one of the big ones.
And are boat owners allowed to work on their boats while they're there, such as doing bottom painting?
That I'm not aware of. That I don't know if that's in zoning, it's allowed. That I'm not sure.
That's
Yeah,
a whole
well, I also,
nother
I'm
kettle
thinking
of
of
fish.
the environmental impacts of that as well.
Yeah, but like I said, I'd like to just stay focused on this number 7, just to save time for everybody. But environmentally, I don't think there's any work that's done on those boats. There are other yards. I've never noticed any painting.
And so because of the shallow draft there especially on the inner part of the slips, these would really just be motorboats, probably, no sailboats. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, so, and there's no gas available there either. So they have to gas up somewhere else and then they sit there. Okay. I mean, I can see why DEP has some concerns about it, but Erin, do you want to address the recent?
Can I ask a quick, sorry, can I ask a quick
Oh,
question?
yeah, please, Shawna. Yeah.
So Shawna Hay, one of the commissioners. So would you limit then what types of boats will be able to use the 29 slips? Would that be a condition of the rental that you have to have a certain draft, or a certain type of boat will be allowed to dock there? Is that how you would, I mean, the concern obviously would be that a boat would get stuck, right? Or that, and that I can imagine there would be some potential environmental impact of boats kind of dragging through the silt. So is there a way to limit or to restrict what types of boats are allowed to use the docks?
I'll let John Lust answer because with his experience, because I think every marina has its limitations.
Every marina has an area of shallow draft, and the managers of the marina are very careful in slip usage. So when they have a client that they'll have a map of all their slips on the wall, and each one will have a number on it as to what's the maximum length or draft boat that could fit in there. So when somebody calls and says, well, I've got a 24-foot Sea Ray with a 3-foot draft, they'll know that, they cannot put it, on the land side of the main floating dock, So, I mean, it's kind of a common sense thing, but proper marina management looks to that and takes care of that. They don't want a boat hitting the bottom either. It's damaging their marina. And so I guess to answer your question, yes, that's something looked at in most every marina.
Well, is that part of the plan for this marina? Just to talk more specifically about this one.
I don't know if I'm the best one to answer that because I don't have any affiliation with the actual management of the marina. I haven't seen an operations plan. Has John Casey, have you seen an operations plan for the marina?
I have not, but what I was going to point out is if you its location on the river, also not just at the site, but the river itself presents certain limitations. So if you look at the navigational chart coming up from Long Island Sound, it shows the lowest depths, the mean low water depths. And there's spots that are low as 2 feet in the channel itself coming up from the sound. So that provides sort of another natural limitation on who's going to get a boat up that far up the river as well. So I don't know what the operations, maybe Chuck or John does, but I think it has a market, as John Lust said from his experience. Boat owners, in my experience, typically don't want to put their crafts at risk, so they're not going to risk it at a marina that won't that their boat won't fit at. So
I just want to add one thing, Chuck Mandel here. The location of the outer slips are actually subject to some scouring right there. So there is some natural dredging that happens because it's so close to the bridge and it's a very channelized area. So there's some natural scouring. So the outer slips will probably remain pretty much at that same depth. I think the last dredging permit was, I think John, I had it was in 92, they received a dredge permit. There was some tidal work that was done in 94, but that was minor grading. But the last time it was dredged was 1992.
It's John Matthews. The owner just called me to say that the north end of the outer slips, the Coast Guard has limited those boats to 20 feet in length because longer boats there would stick out into the channel. So there is some limitations. And then as you go south, you can have bigger boats. I think there's some 32-foot boats down on the lower end of the slips on the outer side, on the channel side.
East side, yep.
Thank you. Erin, we have received some communications though from DEP, is that correct?
Yes, sure. I had 2 points that I just wanted to clarify. The first is from the original action date of July 19th, 2018. And Chuck had discussed this briefly, and I apologize if John Casey, you may have clarified this, and I may have had trouble hearing you. But it's my understanding that it was the applicant who suggested this condition in the first place for this application. Is that correct? According to the minutes that I have, it was Attorney Cody who had submitted that draft language, stating that prior to the issuance of any building permit, the owner would apply for permits to dredge. And then that was transcribed into an actual condition of approval. So I just questioned why and maybe you did mention this, but why did the applicant suggest this as a condition and now a few years later come back and decide against that suggestion? What was the reasoning in the first place?
John Casey, Robinson and Cole, I honestly have no idea. I was just made aware of that today because Chuck had said he listened to the tapes, and I haven't been able to speak with Tom. It might be that he, misapprehended the complexity of dredging, or the need for dredging. Just thinking that every marina dredges, just like, I don't know, like every parking lot gets resurfaced after a certain amount of time. I'm not sure. I can't, I don't want to. I can't speak ill of my partner. I don't know. I don't have any insights into why it was. Clearly, it was done. My assumption is it was because everyone didn't appreciate the significance of what was being offered, and thinking it was, a way to confirm the water dependent use, but not knowing the import of requesting that. And I don't know, I can't say that he proposed that exact language. That seems pretty harsh language, that you couldn't even get a CO until you did the dredging, which, anyone who's, as John said, who's familiar with that process, and Tom's an excellent land use attorney, but he doesn't do as much coastal permitting as I. Even then, if you started that day trying to get dredging permits, you still might not have them today. I'd like to believe it was, like, as I said, a misapprehension of how complex and whether it was even needed. So,
Aaron, if I can add to that, since I did look at the transcript. Actually, it was 1 hour and 17 minutes into the meeting. Tom Cody, he did, not to contradict Mr. Attorney Casey, but
I'm only assuming.
Yeah, so Tom Cody, and I put an asterisk next to his word because I was surprised. He said shall apply for 29 slips to the appropriate agencies. So by saying shall apply, I mean, that means shall apply, and that's how it got written in. I believe, I wasn't at the first meeting, but I think the dredging did come up at some point, whether those slips were viable. And I think that the team kind of ran with it. Sometimes they'll do that to get approvals, and we worry about it later sometimes. But it was ill-conceived to say, and it was naive to say shall apply to DEP for dredging without having the proper. And in retrospect, yes, maybe we should have gotten soundings at that time. And then at that time, we could have presented the same graph, the same chart that John Lust had shown, and that we actually got the soundings out there. So yes, it was ill-conceived. It was an error. We're all human, but to be punitive and make us go to DEP again for a dredging permit, I mean, it might not happen 3, 4, 5 years. Who knows when it's going to happen? And like John said, if we have to get New York involved, it's never going to happen. So that's why it should have said maybe prove that you have 29 slips. You know, the lawyers always, they take one word and run with it. Shall, it shall means shall. And are there 20 different meanings of shall? I don't know. John can weigh in, but it was ill-conceived. And yes, Erin, you're 100% right. It was our recommendation. Wrongly so, by the way.
John, did you have anything else, or should I pick up on?
John Casey? No, I don't.
Yeah, John Casey, I'm sorry. Yes.
I don't have anything else. No.
Okay. My thought on that was, as I believe Chuck said, and you did reiterate, John Casey, that the state did have concerns as to the water, you know, the maintaining a water dependent use on the property, and that along with several other environmental concerns. As you are aware or may not be aware, that the policy, although not necessarily required by statutes, the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission does refer their coastal site plans to DEEP for comments. And as they did have extensive comments the first time around on this approval process, this application for modification was referred to DEEP. And we did receive notice yesterday from our analyst, Amy Quist, indicating that she had received the application for modification, as well as the survey that was submitted, indicating their office has preliminary reviewed the application, and they're anticipating providing comments with significant concerns. Given the current timing, they would like to request that the commission keep the hearing open to allow for their comments to be submitted. Additionally, they ask that we please note, their office has previously provided extensive comments associated to this proposal. And so I think that is something that the commission should consider, although I do understand that the applicant is requesting that you take action at this time. It may be beneficial to the commission to have this additional information submitted by the state. And perhaps, as John Casey had alluded to, maybe DEEP is not interested in having dredging occur at this time anyways, and that may actually help your claim. So that would be my suggestion. As staff, you do have 35 days to keep the hearing open. So it would be my, you know, if there are any other comments from the commission or the applicant, otherwise I would recommend allowing the public, if they do have comments at this time, that or questions to be asked, to allow them to be heard, and then the commission can decide whether or not you'd like to continue the hearing or not.
Aaron, excuse me, I do have one question for you, and it's regarding the minutes from that meeting and whether or not they should become part of an exhibit for this particular hearing, seeing that there was a few members that were not actually on the commission at that time and present, because there was pretty extensive deliberations on this project. And I know the dredging and the was one of the hot topic items, along with the bulkhead, which obviously we're not discussing in this application, but would it make sense to have the minutes made part of this record?
I'm happy to share those minutes. There were three, this hearing continued over 3 evenings. It was May 17th, 2018, June 21st, 2018, and July 19th, 2018. And yes, I do have those minutes. I don't have them uploaded onto the website, so I don't believe any of you have had an opportunity to read through those. But yes, should you wish to continue the, you know, it's fine. I'm happy to send that information and post it if the hearing is continued. Otherwise, if you have a desire to close the public hearing this evening, we'll have to get those minutes read into the record this evening so that you can actually hear what the dialogue was.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines if we were to continue the hearing.
Okay, sure. Absolutely, I could get those.
Do we have any attendees who would like to ask questions?
I guess as the process, Carol, I don't see anyone with their hand raised, but
Sure.
would ask the public if anybody does wish to have a question or comment for or against the application to raise their hand.
Yes, please raise your hand if you have any questions. Good, I see a hand going up.
Yes, I do have one here. Carolyn, you can just have their name and excuse me, their address for the record. Brad?
Brad?
Yes, thank you. My name is Brad Murphy. I am a boat owner and a Madison business owner. And for the record, I have not had any contact with the John, or Chuck team. But I would speak out on behalf because I actually did keep a boat at that marina. So I can, although I have obviously no idea what the future plans are, I've not been involved in any of those discussions. But I've never, in a couple of years that actually I've probably been in and out of that marina, probably over 5 or 7 years. I have never observed anybody working on their own boats. They do all their own work there to the best that I could tell. They stay pretty much fully rented. And I do have a 22-foot center console and never had any issues getting in and out of there at any time. And I am a little bit of an expert on low water as I grew up on the water on Long Island. And there are times that I actually couldn't get out of our own house because there wasn't enough water behind our house. And normally it was really interesting. I actually, I just saw the announcement. I actually owned the building across the street. Quite frankly, I bought it about a year ago. So I saw the public announcement and jumped on the call today. So I do have to be a little politically aware of opening my mouth in something that I have really nothing to, no vested interest other than I have some feedback on a lot of the questions that you asked these gentlemen. And normally in my experience, the concern is always, how do we get approval to dredge? Because there's never enough water. So I'm, actually, very pleasantly surprised that they're not trying to dredge and not trying to open up that huge can of worms, which it really is a nightmare. So again, I think that I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a Madison business owner, that what I've heard about this plan, I think is positive for the community. It's got lots of challenges, there's no doubt. I mean, I have trouble getting out of my own parking lot because it's a busy road. And I'm sure because it's already approved that those have all been addressed. But I really offer really any support that I can, both for the town and or for the progress in that area. So I think that's all I had. And then I guess the last thing I had is, there's obviously plenty of launch areas at the Clinton Town Marina, and it's right at the mouth of that river. So again, the business has been very viable for boat owners. As a boat owner, I can speak for it, and I can speak for the people that have run that marina for a long time as being very friendly to the community and friendly to boat owners. Just a bit of opinion listening for the first time on this process.
Okay, thank you, Brad, for that input. I didn't hear any questions coming out of that, but I think we appreciate the feedback that you provided. Are there any other questions or comments? Or Erin, so now do we move to supporters?
Sure. I think we
Their voice. I don't know if we have
felt we
any.
may have encompassed that all at once.
Yeah.
But yes, if anyone is for or against the application,
Right.
Please raise your hand. And Carol, I don't see any more hands raised.
Okay, none either. Thank you. Okay, so I think that among the commissioners, let's see, do we deliberate at this point, Erin?
No, so the decision would need to be made by the commission as to whether or not you would like to close the public hearing or continue that,
Continue.
continue it to allow for deep comments and as Elliot had indicated, incorporate
minutes.
the minutes from the previous meetings.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move to continue the hearing to, I can't do the math in my head. Then our next meeting, February
3rd.
3rd. Thank you, Aaron. February 3rd, 2022.
Second?
I'll second that motion.
Giselle, you might be muted, so we got Elliot to second. Okay. Yep, now we hear you. All in favor of continuing till February 3rd, 2022? Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. I think it's a unanimous decision then to continue to February 3rd. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the presenters.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, continuing on the agenda, we have pending applications. And the first one would be 2128 Summerhill Road.
Good evening, Chuck Mandel. I am representing the developer, Arbin Miko. Forget about the last meeting. We're all brand new right now. So, Aaron, if I hate to do this to you, can you put the proposed 3 lots? I know you're shaking your head. I apologize. I'll give you a few minutes. So this is this piece is on Summerhill Road. It's I got comments from the town engineer at about 4:57 today. So we were going to continue the hearing till the next meeting so we can address his comments. It's a 3-lot subdivision. We're going to dedicate.
So
It's right on the Hammonasset River. We've contacted the town of Killingworth with the proposal statutorily. We are asking for a waiver of upland for open space. It's right along the river. So we had contact with David Roach of the Land Trust, and he had written a couple of letters saying that the Land Trust is very interested in obtaining this buffer area. That's the hatched area that you see. To the north of the project on Summerhill, there's room for a couple of cars to park. And Aaron had asked me a question earlier why we had that strip going down the center, separating that one lot. And in talking to one of the field crew, and I remember that that's actually a viable area to walk. It's almost easier to walk down that way as opposed to down on either the north or south side. So that's why we did it. We did submit a plan that shows there's some drainage easements that we're going to have to dedicate to the town. It's sometimes years ago when these drainage culverts were put in, it was done without the benefit of any easement. So now, as time goes on and land gets developed, the town wants to formalize these so they have rights to maintain them. We have a letter from the health department. We did our soil testing. We just received a B100A letter from the health department stating that the lots can support individual septic systems and wells. If you scroll up a little bit, Aaron, please.
for this one.
Yeah, just show the site plan. Yeah.
So this is not the revised septic plan
No.
that was part of your original packet, but
Yeah,
we
it's
can-
for discussion purposes. It's
That's
pretty
fine.
close. So we've been before wetlands. I believe you have a letter for referral. That's we're not proposing any activity within the 100-foot review zone. If we do change that, or the developer or someone comes in and wants a larger structure or bigger lawn, then they'll have to go back to wetlands. But that's as it stands now, we do have wetlands approval. The homes are proposed they're all going to be single family residences. Those little blue dots that you see towards the road, those are rain gardens for stormwater mitigation to capture the first inch of rain. and I believe it's very steep slope, so sometimes those aren't counted for open space area or for a developable area. So that's why we were asking for the waiver for the percentage of land for the open space. Like I said, we'll be back next month with the same plan. So and we'll probably go over this again. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the project.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
to just pick up on what Chuck had said, yes, this, and so just to clarify, this is a subdivision, not a re-subdivision, so it's not a public hearing process. And you do have 65 days from receipt for an approval. It is an administrative approval by the commission. Yes, wetland referral has been made, and that report is in the record, as well as confirmation from the Madison Land Conservation Trust that they would be interested in the dedication of open space. As Chuck indicated, yes, there are some topographic challenges on this site. But some being steep slopes, which are separated out as part of determining buildable lot area and the subdivision regulations, and that's what these black areas are shaded on each of the lots. There is a request being made by the applicant for a waiver of I think it's 3.11 of the subdivision regulations with respect to open space dedication. The regulation requires that no more than 50% of the dedicated open space area be comprised of inland wetland soils. As you can see, these blue lines, everything river side of these blue triangles is considered an inland wetland soil. And therefore the applicant is not compliant with that requirement of the subdivision regulations. You are able to grant variances for the various regulations in the subdivision regulations, which is a little bit different, wearing your planning hat as opposed to your zoning hat. However, the commission should look at the benefits of doing that, weighing the benefits of providing open space to the land trust to allow for public access to the river, as well as conservation along the Hammonasset River that is contiguous with other land trust open space. At the same time, you could consider that perhaps there is too much density, eliminating any of the potential upland open space area, and the reduction of one lot could eliminate the need for that waiver. So those are just a couple of thoughts that the commission should weigh prior to making any decisions. Secondly, there are two culverts under Summerhill Road, which were identified by our town engineer. One is identified by the surveyor here, which is corrugated, I think of 15-inch pipe. And then there's another angled pipe that comes out as well. Additionally, there is a 24-inch culvert on this side of the property, which I think you can see there's a water course that comes through here and up. And that has not been identified on this record subdivision. And that was the additional information that the town engineer was seeking, that the surveyor identify that. There's a request to have maintenance easement provided in favor of the town on the properties at this location of this culvert, as well as this one, should any work need to be done by the town for repairs. And then lastly, I believe there was a concern on this particular lot with respect to sightline. And so there was a request for the engineer to verify sight lines, as I think there's a little bit of a crest in the road here that there was questionable. and just needed some additional information. Chuck is correct that this had kind of came in at the 11th hour, although the commission does have some time to kick this down the road for another couple of weeks. And the applicant is agreeable to doing that. So I think we've touched on it all, Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck Mandel again. So just so the commission's aware, in regards to the open space, the waiver that we're asking, we have the correct area is there. It's just the soil types. So we are giving the land that's required. It was just due to the regulation, we're just asking for a waiver on the soil type is what we're asking for. And Erin's right, yeah, absolutely grant to continue this. Then we'll get those, we'll get a sightline plan in there, and we will prepare, we'll show some easements, and we'll make whatever, we'll look at the comments for the next meeting.
Great, thank you, Chuck.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions at this point? And Erin, we don't need to make a motion to continue it, do we?
You could make a motion to table to the next meeting, table discussion to the next meeting. That's fine.
Okay, let's do that then. Can someone make that motion?
I'll make a motion to table this meeting discussion to the next meeting.
Thank you, Giselle. Second?
You're welcome.
I'll second.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you very
Chuck.
much. Okay, have a good night. I'll see you next
Thank you,
meeting.
Chuck.
Okay, bye.
All right, our next item on the agenda then would be 21-30-109 Hartford Avenue.
Yes, and unfortunately, we have an update on this one with a request to table discussion as well. This is for a shoreline erosion, shoreline flood and erosion control structure, seawall reconstruction. This is a mandatory, statutes do require a mandatory referral to DEEP for comments. We did receive comments back from our analyst recommending denial of the application for a few different reasons, one of which is the replacement of vegetated seawall with an armored design, and there were some concerns. So the applicant's engineer, Keith Nielsen from DACO, has reached out to engineers at DEEP requesting a meeting to go over their concerns and requests that we table discussion, hopefully for February 3rd as well, although the commission does have until February 17th to take action on this without an extension. So that could just be another motion to table.
I will move to table that discussion. I guess the question is, do we want to try and do these all at the next meeting, or do we want to space it out a little bit? I don't know if we have other things coming up now that I've already made the motion.
The agenda is filling up.
Yeah. Do we?
We do. We have one public hearing scheduled for Railroad Avenue for the 3rd. So that would be the continuation of the existing hearing. And so 2 public hearings and at this point 2 potential discussion items. I think it seems, just from my opinion, seems reasonable. I'm not, and you know, things can always evolve as they move forward.
As they
well.
do.
Clearly, as they have.
They do seem to be very fluid. Is it possible then, Erin, for us to table it till the 17th, or is that not wise?
It is, and I think some of it could depend. I think the applicant was requesting the 3rd to put it on to circle back with the commission if they've made headway with the state at that point. If they don't have a consensus with the state, they may very well be requesting to be heard on the 17th.
Okay, and if we do put it on the February 3rd agenda, can we also table it to the 17th if the discussions are going on too long? Would that be an option?
It is. I think you just want to keep in mind that if the applicant's have their professionals here at the meeting,
Right, right.
that you should make the efforts to at least allow them to make a presentation if they're waiting through the previous applications. I don't know what the turnout and would be for 14 Railroad Avenue public hearings. So I'm not
Mhm.
sure if that's going to be a real lengthy application, but of course, if we reach to ungodly hours, the commission
We have an
can
option.
decide to call it based on the time, sure. But I'll let the engineer know the concerns of the application load on there, and if they aren't ready to present, then I'd ask him to request to be on the 17th.
Okay, can we have a second for Shona's motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Erin, am I allowed to make motions and second them as the chair? There are only four of us.
There are only four of you. I think at this, I would encourage others to step
Okay.
in
As long as you all don't mind.
for the chair, but
Fine.
we are a little limited this evening.
Okay. All right, so moving along then, we do have the Railroad Avenue on our agenda, but I think it's being heard on the 3rd. Is that right, Erin?
Yep, that's just to let you know that public hearing is coming up.
A heads up, yep. And there is a lot of, I think there are several revisions to their plans, so it is good to just keep checking back, right?
Yes, and there will likely be more.
Exactly.
So I think, yes, and we can, if it gets a little confusing on the website, we can group them into revision dates into folders.
Oh, that
which
would
is a
be
little
really
helpful, I think, too.
Yeah, I get lost in them and I go back and forth a lot. Yeah. Thanks, Erin. That'd be
Sure,
great.
I'll have Maria work some magic on that if she can.
She's not here, so we can say that. Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda then is the approval of minutes. Elliot?
Yep. Yes, I have one set of minutes from our meeting on January 6th, 2022. Members present: Hitchcock, McDowell, Hay, Mathers, Bodenson, Snow, and Ruse. I would entertain a motion.
I noticed there were a few typos.
Okay.
Very minor, like my last name should be capitalized. And then I think also Giselle, you capitalized the D as well, right?
It doesn't have to be.
You're not worried
But-
about it?
No.
Okay, I think otherwise it looked, the minutes look great.
All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes from the 6th of
Dr. Hay?
January 2022.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Giselle. Any discussion or changes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Approved.
Okay, great. On to remarks. I do have a few quick remarks. First of all, I want to thank everyone again for electing me as chair for a year while we wait for vacancies to be filled. And as you can see, being down in numbers does have an effect on all of us. So thank you all for being here tonight. Since our last meeting, I did take the online land use training that's offered by the Center for Land Use Education and Research at the University of Connecticut. And Erin, I didn't mention this to you, but I also joined the planning professionals listserv, which gives
Enjoy.
which I think
Make sure you put them in their own little folder.
I've already
You'll get
found it,
bombarded.
I've already found it interesting to see, just for insight on what other issues are out there from other municipalities and how similar they are actually. Like one that came up today was about short-term rentals and Airbnbs. And I think it's just really helpful to know there's a community out there. And then also I reached out to Erin about updating the Planning and Zoning Commission website, maybe providing some more information about our mission and the role of the commission, just so I think that's clarified. I've looked at Guilford and Clinton to see what they have, and encourage you guys to do the same. But I think Aaron, you came from Guilford, so you know how that might have evolved. That they do talk about what their role is, and and also even who they look for in commissioners. But I think Erin's response to my reaching out to her was that, yeah, you have some issues with the website too. And so
Still has Dave's name everywhere. I haven't
this
even
will be a work
updated
in
my name.
progress.
So
Yeah.
yes, we do actually. We do many of our commissions and committees. It would be nice to be linked through the department's page and vice versa. And yes, updating. I think we're just a little bit backlogged in updating commissioners. And but yes, the role of the commission, I think that is helpful. I have not. It is on my bucket list here to go through our pages and try to update some of the wording and our links as well. So I think that's a good idea. I have
Great.
not forgotten about it.
Thanks. And Erin, do you have any other remarks?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Could we have a motion to adjourn then at 8:24 p.m.?
Ooh, I'll make that motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Have a
Thank
great
you
night,
all.
Thank you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.